I decided to come to Japan with my wife and my family, just escaping what I thought was an untenable political and cultural situation in the US. Hello, my name is Jeremy Freeman. I'm the co-owner of Freeman Shokudo, which I run with my wife, and this is how I made it in Japan. Almost like a Jewish English muffin. My life in my home country, which is the USA, specifically New York City, specifically Brooklyn, New York. I ran a record store in New York for 15 years, and before that I had always been involved with the music industry. About 4 years ago, I woke up one day in New York, where I was born and raised, and felt like New York was not New York anymore. My wife, who's Japanese, we have 2 kids, and we had always wanted to open a restaurant in New York, but it was very expensive, and we had heard for a number of reasons that it might be a little bit more affordable and easier to do what we were dreaming of in Japan. The best thing to do in Japan that I can't do in the US is live a positive middle-class life. It sounds so odd. Japan is very much a place that really supports the middle class and supports not an extravagant lifestyle, but a lifestyle where you can spend time with your kids, you can eat in nice restaurants, you can see your friends, you can do all these things, and to me that's the most impressive thing about living in Japan. I decided to come to Japan with my wife and my family for a number of reasons, including just escaping what I thought was an untenable political and cultural situation in the US under President Trump. Even though Japan was such a foreign place and I really didn't know it well, I always felt oddly comfortable and at home here. Even my interactions without being able to speak the language, I always felt like, this is like pretty homey to me. I never thought it was like a strange place. Like I've seen those movies like Lost in Translation where it makes Japan seem like some alien society. And I never found that at all. I always found it to be like pretty normal. To be honest, the most helpful resource to help me get settled in Japan was being married to a wonderful woman. My wife is Japanese, and because of that, my visa situation was much easier than it would have been otherwise. Getting settled here, we were able to have a place to live, her family's home. It just made the whole situation better being married to her, being involved with someone who is Japanese. I am, as I said, a partner with my wife of Freeman Shokudo, which is a barbecue restaurant specializing in craft beer and pit-smoked barbecue, and actually like Jewish barbecue as well, because I'm Jewish. So I decided to make pastrami, and I make smoked saba, which is like smoked whitefish kind of salad.
I saw Eternals last night. Movie.
Oh, really? How was
really
it?
Liked it.
With Angelina Jolie, right?
Yeah. I liked it a lot. But it wasn't like a regular Marvel movie, which is why I liked it. It was pretty chill. Yeah, not too much action.
So I cook and I help run the restaurant, but my wife deals with all of the business affairs, and she's dealing with the banks and you know, all the licensing and all those things. That said, Japan seems to me at least to be very yes-oriented in terms of small businesses. Shibuya City Council was incredibly helpful with helping us with loans and with banks, and in general, credit here in terms of the food industry is very easy. There's companies, you call them up and order, and they give you a month credit, which is unthinkable in America. To get our liquor license, we just went to the Koban and said, we'll be serving liquor. And they were like, okay, have fun. And that was it. And it was remarkable to me, because in New York, to open a restaurant, you have to first have like basically $1 million to spend in legal fees and, you know, hiring people to speak to the, you know, community council board. You have to make sure you're not, you know, within 500 yards of a church or a school if you're going to serve liquor. You have to grandfather in clauses. And here, it's pretty much a society of like, yes, as long as you work, we're really happy to have you. And I really like that about Japan.
Mayo's sharing with me. Yeah. Well, we're sharing everything. Food is amazing. The whole vibe, everything. The saba is like hella good.
Yeah.
My wife and I met in New York. I think we met 20 years ago, and she was a student and studying at English school, but she was also a journalist working for Kawaii magazine, like kind of gals magazines and a bunch of different stuff. We met in a bar, and a friend of mine thought her friend was very cute, and I knew 2 words in Japanese, so we tried to communicate to get them to get together, but then we ended up being like, well, we kind of like each other more than they didn't like each other. We were seeing each other for about a year, and then I asked her to marry me, and we came to Japan and got married here. In New York, she started, as I said, she was a journalist, but she started becoming more involved in food, and she ran a catering company and did like private chefing, and then she ended up having a food stall selling kind of Japanese like soul food in a thing called Brooklyn Smorgasburg, and she won like the award for best new smorgasburger, and I was very proud of her. In terms of nerding out on barbecue, the type of barbecue that I do is primarily influenced by barbecue that I just tasted around the country, because I liked barbecue, and I specifically I went to Memphis once and I tried these kind of dry rubbed Memphis ribs, and I like those a lot more than very thick, sweet, saucy ribs. I just like the spiciness of them, and they kind of spoke to me. And since I was never raised in the South and was never, and I never went on a journey smoking meat with a bunch of, Southern guys or anything like that, I really wanted to develop, my own style, just what I thought tasted good. And I think, through kind of my background, like Jewish background, there's a lot of spices that are used in Jewish cooking that kind of found their way into my cooking, kind of Middle Eastern influences, a lot of cumin, coriander, those type of things that I've kind of incorporated into my barbecue. But the main thing that you need for barbecue is a great smoker.
Look at this awesome food.
There's 3 places that I've spent a lot of my life and really loved, and that's New York City, and Kingston, Jamaica, and Tokyo, Japan. 3 cities that I absolutely love and mean a lot to me. And one thing I noticed in all those cities is this recurring kind of blue and orange. Kingston, it was these blue fences that were rusted with zinc, so this kind of blue and orange zinc looking thing. And that also I found all over Japan. I would see these kind of zinc fences that had the same rust. And of course in New York, it's the color of like Harlem Globetrotters, New York Knicks, New York Mets, that orange and blue. So that was what I started out with as an idea of colors. Like I wanted that orange and blue to kind of symbolize these 3 things that I love. And when we put it together, I was like, we don't have a lot of money, so we had to just make sure that it reflected who we were more than being able to spend a lot of money and have a designer come in. So I thought, if you're going to be in an environment that has an aesthetic feel, at least you should feel secure that the person who made it really feels seriously about it. Like that's their restaurant. It's not going to be anyone else's restaurant. So we kind of wanted to fill it with our own kind of eccentric sense so that it felt authentic to us and it felt kind of like our living room. Hopefully people would sort of feel the same way about it. When people come to my restaurant, my biggest hope is that they immediately feel comfortable. And we're not a fancy restaurant, and we're not especially casual either. It just feels like a specific place, and that's what I really want for people to feel like. Where they are is not anywhere else in Japan or that they've ever been to before, but at the same time it feels not alien and it feels like you're in a nice person's house. And this is how I made it in Japan. Okay,
Thank
thanks.
you so much.
Thank you.
Look around and see, it's a gift not to Every living soul